Good morning. Yes, I have four candles burning today, and it is 4:44 again. So now it's 4:44, four fours. 4:44 on the clock and four candles burning. Four is the number for me of Earth. And anytime you put numbers together, it magnifies the intensity. And to me, all duplicate, triplicate, quadruplicate numbers in a row are master numbers. They're focusing that energy. And for me, the 444 is the grounding of the kingdom of heaven on earth. I know there are other meanings. We can attach any meaning we want to anything. And it's important that the one using it has an intent of what it means to them. That's my interpretation. Whether right or wrong, I'm not trying to convince anybody that I'm right and you're wrong if you have a different interpretation. I'm only saying that's my interpretation. And that's by way of introduction to today's talk, because I decided to do an extra candle. Yesterday I did 3 candles. Today I did 4. I don't know that I'm going to do that every day, but it's what happened today. It's what I was led to do today. The title for today is 2012, Dick Cheney Gets a New Heart. For those that have kept up with politics in America, it is well known that Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld were most likely the coordinators of 9/11. Cheney was reported in some circles to be the handler of George W. Bush. Cathy O'Brien talked about him in her book Trance Formation of America. He is not a nice man. Well, yesterday he got a new heart. Will this change him in any way? Let me say that I know what it's like to go through open heart surgery. Now, I didn't get a new heart, but I did get a human donor valve, which was placed in the pulmonary valve position of my own heart when my pulmonary valve was moved to the aortic valve position. That's called the Ross procedure, developed by a physician in Great Britain. And I chose that heart surgery when my own aortic valve was hardened. That's called stenosis of the aortic valve, for those of you that want a legal description, or I should say a medical description. And the doctors that performed my surgery, Dr. Malias and Dr. Green, had never done that surgery before. And when I woke up in intensive care, it was one of the worst nights of my life as far as pain goes. I mean, they turned this large woman nurse would come every couple hours or so all night long and turn me. And I mean, it hurt like hell. So I do not envy what Dick Cheney may be going through as he recovers from his heart surgery, where not just a valve, but the entire heart was transplanted. Now, it is said by some that when we get an organ transplanted into our bodies, some of the characteristics of the person that donated the organ, by whatever means it was donated, some of the characteristics of that individual become implanted also, if you will, into the personality of the person receiving the transplant. And so I found this as I was meditating this morning. And at first, when I went into the meditation room, I didn't know what I was going to be doing today. And then I remembered, as I'm sitting there, I remembered the headline that I saw last night before I went to bed about Dick Cheney having the open heart surgery yesterday. And I thought, oh, Dick Cheney got a new heart. I wonder what that's going to mean. You know, folks, I know I've read too much about Dick Cheney to have a lot of respect for the man. I don't have a lot of respect for him. I think he's a tyrant. I don't think he's been a nice man for much of his life, although one of my friends that I've known for some years now, Barbara, she actually went to school with Dick Cheney. She's a contemporary of his, went to school in Wyoming with Dick Cheney, and knew him personally as a young man. Now, her politics and his politics are as different as night and day, but she always felt, when I used to say that he was one of the masterminds of 9/11 or the coordinators of 9/11, she said, no, I know him. He was not a bad person. You know, she had at least had respect, having known him when he was a young man in school. And I could never understand why she couldn't see it, but she was coloring her opinion of Dick Cheney by what he was like, not what he had become, but what he was like many years, some decades earlier. And I wonder what he's going to be like now, having received a transplant. That doesn't reveal who the transplant individual is. Nobody told me who gave me which human gave me their valve from their heart, and he's not going to be told who the donor was that gave the heart that's now beating in his chest. But I would hope that he would have and experience a change of heart. I would hope that he would have the courage to tell the truth. Now, I don't know who the donor is, so all I'm doing is wishful thinking. And I acknowledge that for those of you that want to say, well, Ron, that's wishful thinking. Yes, you're right. And I do wishful thinking. And I'm aware that I'm doing wishful thinking because I have an image of what I want the world to be. I want the world to be a peaceful world, a loving world, a compassionate world, because that's what's in my heart, because that's my vision for humanity, to stop the insanity, to stop the nonsense, to stop the Dick Cheneys and Donald Rumsfelds and the Mossad and the CIA that mastermind terrorist attacks on any nation as they did on 9/11. It was not al-Qaeda. Give me a break. Al-Qaeda remains to this day a CIA subdivision, if you will. It's the list of trained terrorists by the masterminds of worldwide terrorism, the CIA, the MI5 and 6, the Mossad. Yes, that's all Al-Qaeda is. That's all the terrorist groups are, even Hamas and some of these other groups. They're fed by this same beast that wants to keep the war going. And all of humanity needs a new heart. We need a heart transplant. A heart that gives us the courage, as I said earlier, to stand and tell the truth, to stop lying to ourselves and to each other, to rise up courageously and compassionately and look at things truly objectively as to what the truth actually is of things. The world has become a hell, and we've created hell on earth for so many people around the world. People that starve, in a world where there's food enough, that so much food that some of it is wasted every single day, enough to feed all of those that are going hungry. A world where people are dying of it, ravaged by diseases. And yet there are cures for many of these diseases, but the powers that be want to shrink the population of the earth down to a more manageable size of 500 million people, getting rid of 6.5 billion people. And so they don't allow some of the changes and the breakthroughs to be utilized. They keep us in medications that poison our bodies and compromise our immune system and make life hell on earth. And then all of the legal ramifications of the financial system where there can be no justice, where the very courts that are supposed to be meting out justice don't mete out justice, but they protect the fraud and the corruption of the politics and of the financial institutions and the corporations. We live in a world that is insane, that is absolutely insane. So we need a new heart. We need to become able to move from our head only to our heart, and not just cutting the head off. I'm not suggesting that at all. But bring the heart into balance with the head, or the head into balance with the heart is probably the more accurate way to say it, so that we can create a world that works for everybody. Isn't that a lofty goal? Isn't that why we would want a new heart for ourselves? That we could love even our enemy to the point that our enemy is transformed from a Dick Cheney-like person to a new Dick Cheney? A Dick Cheney that maybe can experience compassion. And as I said, courage. Was it the Tin Man and the Wizard of Oz that needed a heart? Don't we all need hearts because we've become too mechanized? And we need to be softened in that area. I think it's a wonderful thing that Dick Cheney, of all people, should be given a new heart, a new lease on life, if it were, as it were, and an opportunity to make amends for the evils that he has done. And some people said, I mean, I had more than one person say that when you say something is evil, that's a judgment. Yes, it is. And not all judgment is bad. I mean, it's calling a spade a spade. When people take the lives of other people wantonly, without remorse, that's evil. We were not created to be that way toward each other. Children are not born that way. I know what the Bible says. We were born in sin and shapen in iniquity. Well, the shapen in iniquity part may be true, especially of the elite, especially of those that have been able to rise to power. They have been manipulated, as I've said before. The elite are horrendous child abusers. Horrendous child abusers. Because they want to stamp out the natural compassion and change the heart to a wicked heart, to a heart that is psychopathic and sociopathic, as Dick Cheney's heart seemed to have become. It was made that way. He wasn't born that way. My friend Barbara is right. No doubt when he was a young man, when he was a child, and perhaps a young man, no doubt he was more tender-hearted than he had become in the later years. That he could sit in the Pentagon and call the shots. What should we do? The plane's getting closer. The plane's getting closer. Did I say anything about turning it around? The stand down still stands. That was Dick Cheney. ordering the stand down on 9/11, the stand down of natural military defenses against such things as 4 rogue airplanes supposedly in our skies. It was a stand down order. Al-Qaeda didn't do that. It was not Osama bin Laden from some cave in Afghanistan that was ordering the American military to stand down. Give me a break, folks. That was Dick Cheney with Donald Rumsfeld by his side. Wake up. That's what really happened. We need to look at that. We need to see that for what it was and for what it is in our world today. It is the wake-up call. And the wake-up call says, man, woman, we together need a new heart, one of compassion, one of love, one that's willing to change us from being selfish to serving others and loving others as we love ourselves. And there's the problem, because we don't love ourselves. So many of us hate our own lives, despair of our own existence, which is why we drug ourselves crazy. And it's why we hurt other people, because those that hurt others. We need to heal our hearts. We need a new heart, a heart within us of compassion and love and forgiveness that will literally transform hell on earth to heaven that everyone can enjoy and be the beneficiary of. I leave you this morning with these thoughts about a new heart. Pray for those that have been the abusers, because they had to have been tremendously abused in order to commit the kind of abuses they have on others. Hold them in your heart of compassion. Namaste.